It automatically did.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here today. My name is Zachary Stank. I am your host for today's webinar. Thank you very much for coming back to another webinar from Phoenix Contact Automation. Just a reminder, if you're watching this on replay or you want to sign up for other webinars, they're available at phoenixcontact.com/us-webinars. That link will appear in your chat box here in a few minutes. Look, ground rules before we get started. We are on a 20-second delay from when we are speaking to when you are seeing what we're doing. If you're using the Q&A and we pass your question or we get onto another topic, before we get to your question, it's not because we're not trying to answer it. It may be because it was just delayed and we didn't get to it yet. So stick around towards the end. We'll answer all questions at the end if we don't get to them during the presentation. And it's basically a one-way conversation, so it'll just be us talking. And the only way for you to interact with us is through that Q&A. So please use the Q&A and we will get your questions answered. So thank you very much for coming. Today's presenter is Andres Suazo. He is going to be presenting the IT and OT convergence, the need for network services from manufacturers. Andres is a lead solution engineer with Phoenix Contact, and he'll be more than happy to walk you through any of your network solution needs. So without further ado, Andres, take it away.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate the introduction. So first off, thank you for setting up these webinars, Zach. I think it's very cool to get an opportunity to present some of our topics around what we are doing back in Harrisburg to try to focus our teams, and also to give customers an opportunity to see some of the initiatives that we're working on to really support them and support both our distributors, our local sales teams, and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for setting that up. I'm excited to present this topic. So my name is Andres Suazo. As Zach said, I am a lead solutions engineer at Phoenix Contact, and today I'm going to be talking about the IT and OT overview and discrepancies, and I'm also going to be focusing on what we call network engineering services. So with that in mind, let me go ahead and start. So again, this is a picture of me. If you haven't seen me in the past, well, that is a picture of what I look like. But I am, again, a lead solutions engineer, and my title is a network engineering services consultant. What that means is when our teams have or our customers are in need of support for a network services application, I come in and I can help support and guide that conversation into how we can provide engineering services, especially around the networking technology to help support in those applications. Now, on to the actual topic of the presentation, which is the IT and OT space and how they are different and also very similar in nature. So if you are part of the OT world, and I'm going to be using the terms IT and OT a lot, I know that most of us are familiar with the term IT, but maybe not so familiar with the term OT. And OT means operations technology, right? So if you're part of the OT team, these are some of the applications that you may have ran into in the past. If you think of Scada systems, supervisory control and data acquisition, those are applications where you're putting in remote systems or remote devices to log information, maybe do a little bit of control. Think of like a tank monitoring system or a pump control system that is monitoring process data and bringing it back to a central system that is taking a look at that information, maybe making some decisions based on some input data that it collects on the system. If you think of VLANs and managed switch networks, those are a little maybe more common in the IT space, but in the OT space, they're also very important because a lot of our devices in the OT side are starting to become more integrated into our day-to-day business processes. And instead of being their own island, they now are starting to be interconnected. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a slide. Cybersecurity applications, a common term we hear, as we hear about more hacks happening in the world, more cyber attacks. Russia is attacking our election system, or you hear more about SolarWinds and the big hack that happened there. Cybersecurity is more and more becoming a constant topic in the world of operations technology. WLAN is something that's becoming very important as well, how to secure those networks and how to deploy them. WLAN applications can be complex, especially when mixing two different types of systems. And then third-party integrations, right? These are, at the end of the day, you don't usually go with a single vendor. You have multiple vendors that you might need to support. But one of the things that's interesting to think about is that all these are areas where the worlds of IT and OT collide, right? And again, IT is more of our office-based technology team, whereas OT is more of our operations team. So the IT team is responsible for making sure that people and business processes and business data is flowing and operating the right way. Whereas the OT space is really focused on the actual product that customers create, right? Their bottom line. And so those are two separate sets of people that are responsible for making sure that those two areas are running properly. But nowadays, you start to see a lot of applications where there seems to be more of a collaboration between both teams. So there is a model out there called the Purdue Model. It's a model that started out of Purdue University. And the idea behind this model is, how do you look at a business or a company and divide its assets into different layers from a networking perspective? And if you look at the OT or the Purdue model, you can see that you have this layer, which is kind of your levels 1 through 3, which are your operations, all the way down to your instrumentation. So the actual devices that collect process data, that are looking at the actual systems operating, all the way up to your historians, your Scada systems, your controllers, and all of those pieces kind of function as the OT space. Then you get more into the IT space. That's more of your enterprise system. It's your historians. It's your virus protection system. It's the overarching system that is looking at all of the infrastructure within your company. And even now, we're starting to do more integrations into cloud applications, which the IT team is heavily reliant on. But you'll notice that there's a lot of big changes happening in the industry that really are gathering these two separate sectors and making them come together. You hear terms like IIoT, which I know is a buzzword that is overused a lot, but it really does mean that these systems that a lot of people used to consider islands, or systems that were not connected to the external world, are now needing to access the external world in order to do more data analytics on them, in order to provide more access to information to other stakeholders, better support processes for manufacturers supporting their customers with their machines. All of these needs, which are made to make customers' experiences much easier and much better, are making these two worlds really come together, because IT is technically responsible for that interconnectivity of systems. So there's a lot of systems that are starting to come together, and which drives more the need for this IT and OT collaboration. So I'm going to talk about a couple different things. First, I'm going to talk about the OT and IT challenge. So the OT and IT challenge, what are the responsibilities of IT and OT teams? And what are some of the challenges when starting to collaborate together? Or what are some of the challenges, particularly on the networking side, in trying to address some of the concerns around IIoT, connectivity, and data analytics, remote access? What are some of those challenges that those teams face? I'm going to talk about Phoenix Contact and NES, and I'm just going to do a quick topic about some of the things we can do, but also not take it from hey, this is what Phoenix Contact can do for you, but more as when you look at a networking project, what are all the facets of that project that need to be considered, and how do you then address and attack those projects? And then I'm going to talk about some solutions and engagements. So some of the applications that we've ran across in the past where we've provided some services, and why it was important for those customers to interface directly with a manufacturer to provide them support on the systems that they were putting together. So first, I'm going to talk about the IT responsibility. So when you think of an IT team, you think of things like governance, you think of things like infrastructure and functionality. So what do those mean? So governance is one of the main functions of what an IT team is responsible for doing. At the end of the day, there is a lot of data and processes that need to be managed by a team. So the data flow and the procedures that are appropriate for systems to access each other, for users to access those systems, the security rules around that, and making sure that at the end of the day, when the CEO is waking up in the morning and he wants to look at a presentation or look at a report on his numbers, that he is accessing the right servers to get the right and latest information to make his business decisions. But you also don't want the CEO to then have access to the server room, because what if his system is compromised for whatever reason? So that is part of the IT responsibility, that governance of data flow. Now, one key and interesting part about the IT responsibility is that it doesn't have to all live in-house. Actually, a lot of what IT does is kind of maintain a realm of operations. They define the processes, they define the rules, but they do a lot of subcontracting. So they will have maybe an ERP system and an engineering firm or a networking company that maybe manages and provides them a support contract for it. For that, they may have a lot of hardware that is installed throughout their facility that they have support contracts with manufacturers. So they don't necessarily have the entire expertise in-house. They are very much familiar and very much comfortable with relying on other companies to provide them some of the auxiliary functions that are needed for them to maintain this governance of their system. Infrastructure is another big responsibility. So at the end of the day, they are responsible for the hardware that is installed on the floor. So if something goes broke or if something needs installed, something needs configured, they do have the technology and the capability to go and take care of those systems, but they also have contracts with upper layer vendors to support them if they have any large or big problems associated with that infrastructure. And then finally, functionality, right? So this is probably what we most think of IT. If something doesn't work, if your laptops don't work, if your printer isn't working, you know, if there's a problem with the network and you're not able to access the internet, or you're not able to access the local servers to collect, you know, data from your sales numbers or your operations data, then IT really has that infrastructure backbone that they are responsible for making sure that there's good functionality with it. But with that, you know, there is some challenges with IT, especially when they're brought into applications with OT. So when it comes to OT or the operations side of things, you know, they don't have a lot of industrial expertise. So they are more familiar with data center maybe applications where you have a air-conditioned room with a bunch of 19-inch rack servers, and they understand the kinds of hardware that they need to place in those systems and how those types of hardware work. They have different expectations for that hardware too. You know, that hardware must be replaced every 5 years because a new technology is available, and they have special contracts with their vendors to do that. It's very different from the OT side. Most systems, once they work, you really don't want to change them. I mean, if they work, it's very risky for you to make a decision to change something that might break the process. You know, having downtime on the OT side is a lot more risky than having downtime in the IT side. There's also different requirements from a hardware perspective. If you think of the environmental specifications that need to go there, the different types of protocols that are used in the OT side, is just not a common thing that the IT team may necessarily have a lot of experience with today. Support is another big thing that kind of follows, and risk of the unknown. And what those mean is truly they know their world. I mean, if you've had familiarity with the IT side, if you've worked on the IT space or interface with those teams, you'll know that Cisco is a very popular name to hear in that industry. But Cisco, albeit they have some products that fit on the OT side, isn't necessarily the the number one type of solution that is made for the OT side, but they don't know the manufacturers in the OT side or the manufacturers that really support those products or have products available. They don't know how to work with them and may not necessarily have experience in working with those types of products. And so it becomes a risk because if something goes wrong, they don't necessarily know how they're going to get support to make sure they're fixing it, especially in situations where IT is becoming responsible for owning those assets. Now let's take a look at the OT side. From the OT side, they have a couple different types of responsibilities. Still very similar. Management is extremely important. They have a process, and that process must work. It must follow a specific flow. It must produce a certain amount of yield, and it must be managed in order to make sure that you are looking at schedules, looking at production cycles, looking at orders coming in and fulfilling those orders. They are responsible for making sure that the production of the systems that they have in place is functioning properly. They're also responsible for compliance, right? OSHA is a big thing in a lot of our customer bases. They need to make sure that they're being compliant with security protocols and safety protocols for their employees. But more and more, one area that is really kind of becoming a mixture is cybersecurity, right? So the OT side is becoming responsible for making sure that their processes are safe. And with all of the different security things that we are hearing these days, it's becoming a part of what they are worrying about when it comes to compliance of their systems. There are some bodies and organizations out there that are starting to heavily push cybersecurity into the OT space. I think the best example is electric power, where you have the NERC CIP security standard that industries must abide by. And if they don't, there is hefty fines that they have to pay. In the water sector, you have AWWA or WEA that are trying to set standards as well for protecting your networks. We just heard about a hack in Florida where there was a TeamViewer issue that happened. Again, those are things that from a compliance perspective are going to become bigger conversations. And then performance improvements, right? So how do we do more with the same amount of assets that we have today? How do we make our systems work more efficiently? How do we provide information, share information between one portion and another? How do we take advantage of data analytics and edge computing in order to actually make our systems run more efficiently? So the OT side is asking a lot of questions, and a lot of these questions, again, going back to this convergence of IT and OT, are really making it so that the OT team has to interface with the IT world. But the IT world or the OT space has challenges as well with the IT space. A networking focus is a big one. When you think of the OT space, typically the main focus is the process, as it should be, right? At the end of the day, the yield of the process is what makes the money for the company. So you have a lot of people that are experts on the different portions of that process. You know, if you're in an oil and gas facility, you have a guy that is dedicated to your ethylene cracker, right? If you have a manufacturing floor on an automotive plant, you have a guy that's maybe focused on the assembly of a certain part of the body of the car. Or you have controls engineers that are making sure that those machines are operating properly and as they need to be operating based on a specification. And they are controls engineers that are monitoring the system, making sure that the process doesn't go down. But networking, a lot of times, is not necessarily a core focus of the OT side. There typically isn't a lot of OT people that have a strong networking background, that they know how to use switches, they know how to, all the different protocols that are available, how to utilize servers, how to create intercommunication in a safe manner, utilize cloud applications. Typically what you have is you have a controls engineer, and upper management says, and now can you please figure out how we're going to implement our IoT strategy, our Industry 4.0 strategy, or our cloud and data analytics strategy. And these controls engineers are now responsible for figuring out a plan for that. Where IT lives in that realm, right? So, but there is this lack of focus from that team that helps them be more knowledgeable on it. There's experience, right? They just don't have a lot of experience with those types of technologies, and as well as solutions, right? So if you're not aware or not constantly living in that world of networking applications, you may not necessarily be aware of what technologies are available to solve some of the problems that you are facing because of what your competitors are demanding or your upper management team is demanding. So at the end of the day, the industry is looking for better service, and a lot of this should and can come from manufacturers. I would argue that manufacturers, knowing both the technologies that they develop as well as developing the products themselves, really have a good place in fitting the support structure for these types of situations, where it's no longer just a conversation on hardware, but it also becomes a conversation on life cycle. How do you manage that system? How do you make sure that that system is operating properly? And how do you get a better customer experience? So the industry is demanding a couple things from manufacturers. They want a better product deployment experience. So if you're installing 100, 200 switches, that should be a pretty easy thing to do. It shouldn't be something where you have to connect to every single switch and build a configuration yourself and install it in a place and create documentation and put together processes and secure it the right way. That they're looking for better experiences for deployment of their systems. They're looking for more reliable systems and designs, right? So they have an idea of what they want their system to do. They may not necessarily know how to do it and how to do it in a way that it'll be reliable and in a way that it'll be secure. And they're looking for commitments from vendors, right? So vendors develop products and they want to be able to call up vendors and say, hey, there's a problem with the product. I need you to fix it. And they want that commitment from a vendor to provide them that high level of support, especially for their critical systems. One thing we try to do at NES is build this. So we're trying to do more of industrial security and network type of services for our customers. We are trying to provide IT type services for the OT space. So again, IT lives in the realm of these networking applications and ideas that are common in that space, but they may not necessarily know how to apply them to the OT space, where at Phoenix Contact, we come from the OT space. That is the world that we live in. We develop products for the OT space. We understand the environmental specifications, the protocols that are used in that world, and how to maintain that criticality of systems. And we also bring the experience of the IT world by having certifications from the IT side, as well as advanced knowledge on networking applications. We're trying to develop strategic partnerships. So at the end of the day, it's elevating that conversation from just a product into what is your actual problem and how can we solve that problem? And then it's service level agreements. It's a really big initiative that we're pushing in a discussion of a term that is very common in the IT world, and it is somewhat common in the OT space. You may have seen it more from a controller perspective. You see a lot of manufacturers offering what we would consider a service level agreement, but they may call it maybe a support agreement, right? If you have any problems with the controller, if something happens with the controller, call this line and you're going to get premium support for that controller. So let's talk about engineering services and what we can do with the network engineering services team, but let's also look at it not from a sales perspective. Let's look at it more from just a project requirements perspective. And when you're out there looking at projects that are more heavy on the networking side within the OT space, there's a couple different aspects of a project that need to be considered, different types of projects that could be applied, and different services and systems that need to be put together to implement them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is assessments, right? So assessments is a key feature or function of a network services application. So if you think of the world of networking applications, you really have two big focuses that you could do. There is assessments, which is, hey, I have a problem, something's not working, or hey, I have an existing system and I need you to improve it, right? So that's really where assessments come into play. So if customers are requiring cybersecurity audits, or they are looking for somebody to come in, take a look at their architecture and their system and provide some best practices for securing that system more efficiently, that would fall under the category of what an assessment would be. Network performance improvements. So we have a customer application in automotive where they have an Agv system. And for some reason, that Agv system is shutting down about 4 times a day. And it requires somebody to come in and take a look at it. They don't know what it is. They think it's the wireless system, but they're not entirely sure. An assessment is something that is done to go in there, take a look at an existing system, take diagnostics, run captures, review the installation, and provide information to a customer on what it is that system is having issues with. And then wireless surveys, again, right? It's, hey, we want to put wireless in a system or in an area. We're just not sure how it's going to work or if it's going to perform according to what we need it to do. So assessments tend to focus a little bit more on greenfield applications, but also just on systems that are already, or sorry, not greenfield, but more brownfield applications where customers already have a system that's fully deployed, and they may want somebody to come in and take a look at that system to try to provide better support on it. The next one is design, right? So this is more greenfield. You have a new process you want to implement. You have a new system you want to put together, and you are looking for a recommendation on how to lay out this system based on your needs. I'll give you an example of an application. We have a wastewater treatment system. They had a variety of tanks across many different fields, and they wanted a very reliable system. They wanted the ability to have a microwave tower radio system implemented via long-range Ethernet radios that would communicate information from pumps and as well as valves and set points from instrumentation to bring that data back into a Scada system. But if for some reason that wireless link failed, they wanted it to fail over to cellular. And when it failed over to cellular, they wanted the communication to be seamless and without an issue. If you're familiar with networking, if you have a networking background, you know that there's a lot of complications that can arise from that type of system, right? The coordination of that system needs to be designed in a very specific way. And so putting together a design for those systems is something that, as a customer, it needs to be considered. Somebody needs to come in and put together a plan. How are we going to implement this in the near term and in the long term? This particular customer wanted to get the wireless uplink up and running and have the ability to add cellular in a year or two. But you have to really deploy a system in a specific manner in order to make that work appropriately, or else you're going to have a lot of challenges with that. So hiring a company to do some type of a design of a system while you're going through the first steps of putting the system together is going to be an important part of any project as well. Configurations is something else that manufacturers can provide support to their customers. So if you think of configurations, if you think of an application that has maybe 100 switches, 200 switches, maybe 100 wireless radios, to be a customer that grabs a product, connects to its web page, and does the configuration for every single one of those products can be a very challenging thing to do. So manufacturers are adept at working with their products. They know how to use them. They work with them every day. So building these configurations can be a service that can and should be provided by manufacturers. And at the end of the day, it goes all the way to box builds, right? So particularly at Phoenix, we are able to look at a project, create a design for it, and build configurations for the products that are implemented by a customer. And then if they are looking for specific maybe rail assemblies of power systems and connectivity systems within that rail, it's something that we can provide support with as well. Management of the products and systems is also a really big key element of any project requirement for networking. SLA contracts come into play in this area. And what an SLA is it's a service level agreement, or it's a contract between a manufacturer and a customer that provides reliability for their systems. It's level 3, it's guaranteed level 3 and level 4 support for customers. It's the availability of product. So if a system goes bad, manufacturers through SLA contracts can provide a guarantee that product will be delivered to customers within a specific time frame. It's, what are you going to do if you can't solve my problem? How are you going to fix it? Because you and I have a contract that guarantees that you'll give us support on our system. And all of those form part of what an SLA contract is. And those are, they're dedicated contracts that go beyond the standard, hey, you know, we're a good manufacturer, because we are, and we support our customers as best we can. But a contract kind of takes it to the next level, where we form specialized agreements with our customers to provide them advanced levels of support. Critical applications have demanded that manufacturers provide this type of services. But it goes beyond that also to management software. So again, you're installing 100 switches and you need to be able to push configurations. You need to be able to push firmware updates to them. Then technologies need to be available to manage that from a server perspective. So having tools like at Phoenix Contact, we have MDM and Network Manager for our switches and MGuards, or our router technology. It's important for manufacturers to provide their customers, or provide access to it through maybe some remote connectivity solutions. And then internal and external support strategy. As we evolve in strategic partnerships with our customers, it's important to develop a strategy for support, whether that be having direct access by the manufacturer to your system, to actually look into that system, not from a technician on the field collecting information, but really logging into that system and collecting information to drive better support and better solutions for customers when it comes to the reliability of their system. Documentation is another big portion of any project, right? So when you create a design of a system, or create configurations of a system, or want to define the plan that's going to be used to implement this new system, documentation becomes a really important part of any networking project. So creating proposals, doing design reviews, and providing documentation on all the different pieces is an important part of managing your project. You know, think of at your home when you set up the Wi-Fi password for your router. You did this 20, 30 years ago. Okay, maybe that's a little too long. You probably didn't have a router for 20, 30 years ago. Let's just say you did it for maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Okay, did you write it down? Did you build some documentation that told you what the IP address of that router was, or what the password for the router was? What if you need to change that password for whatever reason? All of those are things that come in documentation. You know, I bought a house recently, and the guy that owned the house previously had manuals, a little binder of manuals put together for all of the appliances in the home, and that was awesome. It was great to be able to grab that set of manuals and just look through all the products and be able to understand how all of them work. If you don't do documentation, then inevitably down the line, when you start looking at information on the system that you put together, you won't be able to provide, to review it and really understand it without doing some good documentation on it. Training is important, so networking as a technology and the training behind it, but also customer-specific training, right? So if you design a system and it's implemented and supported by a manufacturer, there should be appropriate training that follows on how that system works. What is all the documentation that was put together? What is the design? Why was some of those decisions made? And present it to a group of stakeholders that will take ownership of that system. And it's also cybersecurity, right? So as cybersecurity grows, if you think of it, cybersecurity is not just a product conversation, it's an entire company conversation. And trainings around those topics would become very important as well, especially when your vendors are providing you cybersecurity solutions. So those are some of the examples or not examples, but some of the ways that we look at a project at Phoenix Contact and how it needs to be broken out and the things that need to be considered when working on any type of networking project. But now let's look at a couple examples. So these are some of the examples we've come across in our world where we've provided some services for customers. Agv deployment has been an area that's been particularly attractive to our customers to utilize our services. The main reason behind it, when you're installing an Agv in a new end user application, typically you're going to run into two types of situations. One, you're going to try to deploy your own wireless system into that world, or two, you're going to integrate the wireless system on the Agv to your customer's wireless network. Both of them come with very significant challenges. So, installing, the ideal one would be there's a brand new plant with no wireless, and then you just install your access points and your clients and you're done. But in a lot of applications, I'd say 90%, you're more in the category of the first two, where you're either integrating or putting together your own network that is communicating at the same time as another network. And there are challenges that can come with that. Building layouts provide problems for wireless connectivity, making sure that you are not interfering with another wireless system's frequency and communication is important. And being able to define how those systems work appropriately is an important part of working on a networking project for wireless. And all of these are services that we can provide as a company. We can do a pre-installation survey to review the existing wireless system that is in play. We can do post-installation to do, validation of a system that is going through a site acceptance test. And we can do training and, again, provide support agreements for customers as well. Scada deployments are another area where involving your manufacturer and involving support teams is extremely important. If you think of a Scada application, there's a lot of challenges that come with it. You have assets that are all over the place. A lot of times there is security needs and also integration needs, where if you have an IT team, they will likely have some type of big switch infrastructure in the front that needs to be brought into a system. A couple times it'll be, or what we've seen is a lot of Cisco out there, where you'll have on the OT side of things, you'll have OT products that are being used in order to interconnect, provide the connectivity to all those remote assets, but eventually they have to be terminated at some type of upper layer IT enterprise infrastructure. And doing those types of integrations can sometimes be a challenge when deploying large SCADA systems. We've seen this a lot in water applications that we've been involved with in the past. Again, all of these are strategies that can be defined through a good design, through some good documentation, through some good support contracts, and they can all be addressed by involving a competent networking team. And the last one that seems to be an area of focus for involving a networking team to help with the deployment is electric utility. So if you look at electric utility applications, they seem to be areas where, particularly with NERC SIP, they have high requirements for security on their systems. They have also very complex networking systems that they use. Things like PRP and high redundancy protocols are needed because maintaining the grid is one of the is a very important critical infrastructure system. So they tend to have very, very complex networking products that do require a lot of support to get up and running. As an end user, they don't necessarily have engineers on staff that are command line interface trained. And that's the type of switches that you're most likely going to find to meet some of the specifications and requirements for this industry. But matching both of those worlds of products that fit IT type applications with OT requirements are not easy to find, especially with finding companies that really provide a view into both of those types of worlds. So at the end of the day, going back to what we try to do at Phoenix Contact is we're really trying to build customer partnerships. So if you think of going out there and providing a customer with just a standard product, we make great products. We have extremely high quality in our products, which makes us a differentiator to a lot of our competitors. But at the end of the day, what we're trying to do as a company is to elevate that discussion, not to just provide a product, but also a partnership where we're really trying to provide that higher level of support so that your systems are maintained and supported appropriately. We all know that downtime is a killer, and downtime in the OT side can be extremely expensive. So having these partnerships developed before anything happens is a great way to make sure that you're maintaining high reliability in your systems. So when we look at some of the IT challenges that we discussed at the beginning, industrial expertise, support, and risk of the unknown, those are some of the things that the IT side has challenges with taking ownership of OT assets. And we have capabilities in our team, and as should other manufacturers, to provide this level of support, where high networking expertise on our OT products or in OT applications with our products is part of our capabilities. SLA contracts is something we've started to implement to provide better support contracts to our customers. And then again, expertise on industrial products and processes. We have a group of engineers in our team that are very competent and capable and understand the different industries into which our products are being used in. So we can provide a lot of expertise to the OT side, especially when involving the IT teams on that conversation. One thing I will add, if you are part of an OT team that is responsible for the process, I know that there is a lot of hesitancy to involve IT teams on these discussions. IT tends to be a team that we consider the naysayers, right? If I bring this over to IT, they're just going to kibosh it and say, no, you can't do that because it doesn't fit our standards. I think it's important to create collaboration. I think that if you do not involve the IT team in an early stage, you put yourself at risk that they may eventually put a kibosh on the system anyways when you're so far down the project that it really creates a lot of friction. Involving them early on your projects, making sure they are aware of what you're doing, asking them to take ownership and to prepare plans for that ownership if needed, is done in the planning stages of your system, not reactively when you're deploying switches into a network and somebody calls you and says, hey, this isn't allowed to be on our network. I think that even though there is some concern with working with IT teams, they are an important part to these discussions, especially as we talk about normalization of networks across IT and OT spaces. From the OT side, there are challenges from the OT side where, again, they don't necessarily have a lot of networking focus on the personnel that they have on staff. They may not necessarily have as much experience or know a lot about the solutions that exist today in the market for solving some of these complex networking problems. That's an area where we can really provide an additional level of support. Our teams have a lot of networking expertise. We have constant trainings and knowledge on the products that we develop that are made specifically for OT applications. So we are required to understand the technology behind the products that we develop. We have a focus on the industrial space, again, with a variety of different sales professionals out there that are calling on the different industries that we support from an OT perspective or from an industrial perspective. And then we have a lot of networking solutions that fit a lot of customer applications. And one thing I did want to reiterate is, we are very comfortable with having conversations with the IT teams. Actually, I think IT finds it refreshing to have a conversation when you bring us to the table, because it allows you to show that you have additional resources and expertise from your side that you're bringing for them to utilize in case they need to take some additional ownership that they may not feel so comfortable in having. At the end of the day, our vision is to become a security and networking services company or a networking service provider for both the IT and OT teams so that we can help them manage, support, and secure their OT assets. OT is where our company was born, and we have a certified team in staff to help provide that comfort of support, management, deployment of these systems for customers that are looking to take their systems to the next level and really develop the networking systems around what they're trying to put together to improve the reliability or improve the yield of your systems. Whatever your goals are, we're here to help you put those things together. Some closing thoughts. Again, we're trying to develop partnerships. If you have applications or situations where you're looking to involve a team to help you put together a design, or you have a problem from a networking perspective in your system, we are a team that's ready to help. Give us a call, involve us, let us know what we can do to support you, and we'd love to be a part of your solution. I can't stress this enough. Involve IT in your discussions. I know that it's not necessarily something that is very comfortable for everybody to do, but it is important. At the end of the day, when you're talking about networking, when you're talking about connecting your systems to cloud applications, running analytics, interconnecting them between different buildings, or just putting them on a network, eventually you're going to hit the domain of IT. And when you do, it is better to have them on your side at the beginning than it is to have to fight that battle when you're in a critical moment ready to start up your system. And then finally, engage our team. If you're looking for a company to provide you some experts on networking technology, to have discussions, to define the systems that you're trying to put together, and to really focus in on this conversation, we're working with a variety of different customers to do this today, and we'd love to be a part of your solution as well. With that, I have my email address on this slide. If you'd like to contact me to have a further discussion on the topic, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to discuss this with you and see what we can do to help and what we can do to make your applications better. So please reach out to me at any point, and I appreciate everybody's time in coming over this presentation and listening to what I have to say.
All right, thank you very much, Andres. We have a few questions in the chat here. The first question for you is, will Phoenix Contact offer 24/7 support with SLA contracts?
Yes, so we do have an SLA contract now that does offer 24/7 support on our networking products with a 30-minute response time. It's exclusive for our for customers that have extremely high critical systems, and it's been a request that our customers have asked of us to have a way to contact us through an agreement that if there's something wrong with their system, that we can either connect to it remotely or have in-depth knowledge of that system to be able to support it if they have any situation for downtime. And this may mean troubleshooting the system, looking at networking, at the overall network structure, looking at packet captures, updating firmware on a product, whatever that support system may be. We will have a group of qualified personnel on call for these types of discussions with customers.
Okay, it looks like we got just one more here. So at the end, you said they could reach out to you, and I put your email address there in the chat. But can they reach out to Phoenix Contact distributors or local salespeople as well about these types
Absolutely.
of services?
So because of the wide breadth of audience, I wanted to at least provide a specific email address for people to reach out to if they had questions, particularly if they did not know who their Phoenix Contact representative in their region was. But if you go to our website and you look under Contact Us, you should be able to find your local Phoenix Contact representative, especially your automation sales specialist. They are focused in a lot of these automation technologies that we are promoting to our customers and are very familiar with what we're doing from a services perspective. They are a great place to start to have a discussion about this. But you can also reach out to me directly if you want to, and I will be looping in our sales teams into those conversations for local support.
All right, thank you very much, Andres. Do you have any final comments before we close out?
First off, thank you to you, Zach, for putting this together. I think it's a great forum for us to reach out to customers and to our distributors and sales teams about, again, some of the initiatives that we're putting together here in the headquarters. But it's exciting. You know, I took this role and I was tasked with creating this and developing it, and it's been a really exciting journey for us and putting together these processes to make the lives of our customers easier, as well as the lives of our sales teams easier. We are trying to provide that next level of support that we know customers are demanding, and we're trying to meet that need with a competent team of engineering resources here or engineering people here in the in our office to help support these applications. So please, we'd love to listen to what applications you have and get involved wherever we can.
All right, thank you very much, Andres, for presenting today. Thank you, everybody in attendance, for staying online with us here and for your wonderful questions. Just a reminder, if you found this interesting and you'd like to share it with one of your comrades or somebody in IT that you want them to take a look at it, we are able to share this link. So the link that you got in your mail is the link to view this on review or to watch it again. So about 30 minutes after we finish here, it will be available at that same link to watch the replay. If you lose that link or you want to sign up for other ones or watch other webinars that we've done, again, just a reminder, phoenixcontact.com/US-webinars. That'll take you right to our landing page. You can sign up for any of the completed or upcoming events, and you'll get that link right in your email then for you to attend. And just a reminder that next week, Justin Shade will be on, and we'll be talking about Wi-Fi 6 and its impact to the industrial automation industry. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all there, and have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Andres.
Thank you, Zach.